Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Back out. I'm I'm not working. Too bad.
Rob, if you can hear me, I can't hear you. But I heard Dave when he came on briefly, but I cannot hear you.
Okay, this is. I'm completely befuddled.
Yeah, Dave, I can hear you. I cannot hear Rob.
Oh, okay. I was trying to use the Yeti mic, and I thought it was the mic's fault, but I can't hear Rob either.
Yeah, I can't hear him. It looks like it's just you and me. Hang on, and Doug just texted me. Let's see what Doug just said. Mics are off for Rob. I'm gonna tell him real quick. Yeah, I guess it's just you and I, huh? Can you hear me, Dave?
All right, we'll try it again. Frank, Doug, Dave, can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me now? Okay.
Yep.
Everything's good. Okay. We had a little technical issue there. We had Mildred. Mildred was there soaking in prune juice and told me leave the studio and come back. So we got Frank. Do we have Frank? Give me a thumbs up. Here we go. I tell you, technology is so much fun. I'm glad I
Got
can
you
count.
now.
Yeah, I'm glad I can count on y'all. Unlike Marvin Harrison Jr., what a terrible look in that game last night. Ohio State and Missouri, and Ohio State's offense looked like two elephants trying to do it. I mean, it was horrible. and there's Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the 4 finalists for the Heisman, standing there. I don't know what that thing he had on his head was, that cap or whatever it was. Just, I hope his teammates listen. I would, if I were the coach. Ryan Day wouldn't do it because so many of these coaches today are just soft and they're woke and they're letting the tail wag the dog. I wouldn't have let him within 100 miles of my sidelines. I don't give a damn what he accomplished in his college career. Again, you go ask anybody, Frank, in your business, you and Rhonda, Dave, in your businesses, and what I do, you're either on the team all in or you don't participate. You don't, God bless America, but you cannot get a better example than our military, the best people in the world. Like I'm saying, my brother-in-law, Kurt Ham. Hey, how about I'm gonna opt out. I'm opting out on this house search, Kurt, a gunnery sergeant. So try that. Marvin Harrison Jr., he could have helped his team win last night. And now you're going to have to hear the apologists say, well, Ohio State would have won if he would have played. We don't know that. We do know this. Luther Burden, the junior or the third, whatever, from Missouri is a damn good receiver. Brady Cook is a hell of a quarterback. And I am proud of Missouri and the University of Memphis. They got their 10th win in the Liberty Bowl against Iowa State. But that's just not a good look, gentlemen. I don't care. Sidelines. Hey, look, free speech is alive and well. So I'll hit the free speech button. I'll go first with Dave.
Yes, sir.
And then,
well, go back to their arch rival, Michigan. And,
Yeah.
Bo Schembechler, a man's man, and when he was athletic director, and everyone thinks that, the Fab Five must have won it all, cut down the nets for Michigan. They did not. Their one national championship in basketball was a few years earlier in 1989. Bill Frieder was their coach, their basketball coach, and he accepted a job from Arizona State. And he went to his boss, the athletic director, and said, Coach Bo, just for you, just for university, I'll go ahead and coach the team through the tournament. And Coach Schembechler said, no, you will not.
That's right.
Leave immediately. Steve Fisher comes in as the interim coach, and they win the national championship with Glenn Rice and Ramil Robinson. Yeah, and I love the example that was set there. And I think that example needs to continue. And so Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't care what you've done for the university. If you're not going to play in this game, we do not want you on our sideline.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, this there's a new song I saw on Twitter this morning that Ray in Huntsville sent to me, and it's going to be big. It's a young, good-looking girl, country music singer. Looks like she's in Nashville, on Broadway in one of the bars, restaurants. And it's about the millennials and their feelings and what they can do with them. And I'll tell you straight up, God, I am so thankful for the hard-ass teachers and coaches and friends that I have in my life, like my parents, who I don't give a damn what you think you might be feeling or whatever. You owe it to your team to show up and put your best foot forward. Frank Duffy in New Orleans. Where are you, Frank?
I'm actually in Tampa. I'm here to watch my Saints try and stay alive in the playoffs against the Bucks. And, of course, I'm here for my LSU Tigers at the 2024 Tangerine Bowl. I'm sorry. I'm old school. I remember.
I love that.
The Tangerine Bowl.
Hey, look, we got Wisconsin. As bad as Ohio State looked last night, I'm kind of liking my chances tonight, right? With Wisconsin being 7-5. But here's the thing. If you're not pulling on the rope with me, get the hell off the rope, because all you are to me is in my way and dead weight. Shame on Marvin Harrison Jr. And let me tell you something. I want a damn recount. Malik Neighbors should have the Blitnikoff Award. Marvin Harrison Jr. got that because of his name, right? And so, all right, great. And that's the same reason why he got to pull that stunt last night, was because of his name. If he's Herbie Lipschitz, the wide receiver, from Sandusky, Ohio, he doesn't get to pull that bullshit. Yeah. So no, I'm sorry. If you're not in the foxhole, get the hell out the foxhole. All you're doing is ruining my field of fire. Get out.
Yeah. And how many times
we don't want the camera on you? We don't care.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. How many times did the ESPN cameras have to show over there? Marvin Harrison Jr., he has decided to sit this one out for his NFL future. I remember many times when people would say, well, I'm going to do this or that. And people say, you know what? You may not give I guess you don't give a damn about anybody else's future but your own. It's the selfishness.
But let's don't bury the lead though, guys. The real story on this is Eli Drinkowitz and the Missouri Tigers.
Exactly.
Outstanding job, gentlemen. You clean their clock, and what a great season in Columbia in Como. Very proud of our Western brothers in the SEC for going, just curb stomping Ohio State. And let me tell you, I was kind of early in the week. I was starting to kind of think, well, Michigan's a darn good team. And, I watched Alabama come one play away from losing at Auburn. Maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too. No. Alabama's going to curb stomp Michigan too. It's just the way it's going to be. And you're going to see an Alabama-Texas final. You watch. But no, congratulations to the Missouri Tigers. They are a scrappy team. I'm so proud that we went out there and beat them. In hindsight, that win just gets bigger and bigger after watching them play Tennessee and then now them beating Ohio State. Man, our win out in Columbia is looking even better.
Absolutely. And the Memphis Tigers.
Yeah.
The Memphis Tigers basketball. And Penny's going to put them in the Sweet 16. The world is coming around.
They were up on Iowa State before Iowa State even knew what hit them. You talk about a cyclone. That was the Memphis Tigers. They were up 19-0 before I got I stopped and got some coffee at Love's. Around Lake City, Florida on my drive down from Atlanta yesterday. By the way, I left when it was snow flurrying up in the North Georgia mountains. I was like, let me get the hell out of here now, right? So, but anyway, I went in for coffee, and then Memphis scored 2 touchdowns in like 5 seconds. And by the way, what a great ball game that Kentucky Clemson game was. And I didn't see it down, but I listened to it. You talk about great theater of the ear. Now, look, I said to y'all in the text, Kentucky's going to kick themselves in the hindquarter for losing that bowl game. They should not have lost that bowl game. I don't know what kind of defense they must have been playing. Like I said, I didn't see it down. I listened to it on the radio, but that was 8 lead changes in that ball game, back and forth. It was just great theater. I tell you what, I've enjoyed the bowl games this year immensely. I mean, they've been very intriguing and very, very exciting.
It seems like in every game, at least one of the teams have taken the bowl game seriously and shown up to play. And in many bowl games, both teams have shown up to play. Yeah, that has not been the case really since COVID. And so I'm happy to see that.
Agreed.
Well, I will say I love that takeaway from both of y'all, because the games do matter. Again, my response is don't forget the fans. The fans own college football. Okay, we are the free market. And if you're going to say Marvin Harrison Jr., I could care less about that guy. I would not draft him. I don't give a damn how good he is, because he's going to quit again. He'll do it again. He'll quit because his finger hurts. This is, look, you cannot allow this stuff to happen. And it is the weak culture, the worrying about their, suddenly, guys in the past. How about the guy that won the Butkus Award, Peyton Wilson? Last time I checked, Dick Butkus was an alpha male badass. Okay. But what happened? Peyton Wilson, the Butkus Award winner, NC State linebackers on the sidelines in street clothes, talking about, these are my brothers, we'll always be brothers. Oh, spare me, people, telling me about these guys have a chance to go make a lot of money. They have to do that. By the way, at the Christmas party the other night, I was talking to my friend son-in-law I've known since he was 14. He's 33 now. He is just now, as of September 1st, getting to practice as an orthopedic surgeon. He has been in college since he was 18 years old. And folks, residents don't make but maybe 40, 45,000 if they're lucky. You are working like rented mule. And he's just now at age 33. And you know what? I hope he makes all the money in the whole wide world. And here's the thing. He couldn't practice when he was 21. He couldn't do that. Or 18. He couldn't throw a hissy fit and say, well, that's not fair. I'm going to tell you something, folks. We better grab this one by the horns now. Marvin Harrison Jr., Peyton Wilson, take these awards away from him. What would Dick Butkus say right now from his recently dug grave? He died in the last month. Yeah. What would he say about Peyton Wilson standing on the sidelines, not fighting with his teammates? Don't give me this band of brothers crap. You're a quitter. I'm sick of it. I mean,
and this individual culture becomes a team culture. And you're in the NFL and you're 3-7. You know, you've got 7 games left on your schedule. You say, well, you know what? We can't make the playoffs this year. Let's go ahead and tank the rest of the season and try to get a better, better draft picks. Yeah, it becomes pervasive. It just to give up. Everything is habit forming, and giving up is definitely habit forming.
Tank for Tua became in the lexicon of our English because it was the Miami Dolphins tanking that year so they could get Tua Tagovailoa. That's crazy. Hey, Doug, good seeing you, brother.
Good morning.
Good morning, pal.
I signed on just fast enough to hear Rob's social rant.
Get off of my lawn.
Yesterday, he fasted in the morning, and he was just pissed off the entire show. I hope he had a little breakfast this morning.
Rob, you're not wrong, Rob. And I was thinking, I can't remember the player, but I believe no more than once has a likely high first-round draft played in a meaningless bowl game and did blow out a knee. I've forgotten who that player was.
Willis McGahee, 2002, Ohio State, Miami.
Thank you. The Rob's steel trap for a brain comes in handy yet again.
Savant Saturday.
No, it's not a savant. But I am in Highlands, North Carolina. Man, is it one of the beautiful places across this fruited plain. It feels like day 3. I'm getting used to driving those treacherous mountain roads. Take your road, it can end badly, and there's not guardrails everywhere. But anyway, I digress. So that player, it was heartbreaking, and you could talk yourself into, from that instance, saying that any player that's about to be a multimillionaire should sit out a bowl game. But my problem with it is exactly what Rob said. It starts you down this slippery slope in which players might even be in games, but they're dialing it back, just trying to conduct themselves to avoid an injury in game. And it goes to the integrity of competition, the integrity of the game, and whether we want these bowl games 20 years from now to even mean anything.
And Doug, you know as well as I do, when you try to play to not get hurt, guess what? You're going to get hurt. It's like when you start talking about skidding on ice and going off the road. If you focus on the tree, you will hit the tree.
Absolutely.
You will hit it.
If what you've got coming up, Frank, and me too, a little later on today, if you play to avoid double bogey, you're going to make a bogey, and you're not going to make a par, and you're certainly not going to make a birdie.
Well, the problem is, and all of us, look, we've all got kids that are of this age group. Mine are not like this. Mine go to a game, they stay the full 60, they work their asses off. They do respond well to tough coaching, tough love. Man, where would any of us be without that high school teacher or grade school teacher or coach who just absolutely would not give up on us? Not to mention our own parents, but thank God for those people that I had, like Coach Russell Reed at Christian Brothers High School. That was the toughest man my freshman year. And once he established that he was the big dog, and he, we got along great. I love that man for that.
One of my coaches, Coach Rose Valley, when I was a catcher, was one of the toughest coaches in the world. and he had like a lazy eye. And I swear to God, he would yell at you and go, "Y'all go pick up that ball." And like 20, you didn't know who he was looking at. So 20 guys would like jump to go find that, the baseball, right? You had guys falling all over themselves. But you know what? I think back on how tough he was.
Yeah.
I can still hear him. I can still hear him from the dugout to this day. I can still hear his voice. But you know what? That's exactly what 13-year-old know-it-all Frank, who actually did have some talent, but thought he knew everything. That's exactly what Frank needed, and that's sadly missing today. And those of us that do have kids, we try to do it, and I mean, but our environment, our freaking society, looks at you like you got four heads when you actually go to spank your kid in the friggin' Walmart because they're having a hissy fit. I mean, it's a dissolving of the way that we were all brought up and raised, which made us functioning adults. And this millennial group, I'm sorry, as a collective group, for the most part, they don't have it. They do not have it.
Yeah, my boxing teacher at West Point, Major Millard, Vietnam veteran, he had a great saying: "No blood, no grade." And for you to get an A in boxing, you had to draw blood from in your bouts, and you also had to bleed yourself, because if you didn't get popped hard enough to bleed, you weren't fighting hard enough.
Love it.
Duffy, I'm going to start trying to look like this on the show so that you can't tell which of y'all I'm talking to.
Hey, your eyes got to squirrel around like it's a race car.
Listen, if Rob's going to call us savants, we should be creative problem solvers. And I wonder, I'm not familiar with this division of Lloyd's of London. One of you guys probably can help us here. But it seems like, in terms of ensuring that there would be a way for Lloyd's to write sort of a blanket policy covering all the bowl games. Stay with me here, and because I'm making this up, and that it would be written such that if a player who is projected rounds 2 or higher in the draft and is declared they're coming out, they have a career-ending injury, not a little ankle week, a career-ending injury, Lloyd's writes a check for $2 million. I pick a number, $2 million. And if the excuse is I don't want to risk injury going into the draft, then balance that out by ensuring the risk. Isn't there a way, guys?
And don't some players already have insurance policies, individual insurance policies? I believe they do.
Most do.
And then if the argument is, well, I don't want my playing career to end through an injury, well, I mean, that's kind of in God's hands. I mean, it's going to end at some point. Either you can't play anymore, or you have a career-ending injury. So that's going to happen, or it's not. And don't pick the bowl game as the one you're going to sit out.
Yeah, well, and they just went through 75 games. I mean, we're not saying, hey, I'm going to go walk out in a lightning storm and get struck by lightning. They've gone through 75 1-hour, 60-minute games in their college career in most cases. So I think blanket them all. In fact, you could probably get even you get Kaiser Permanente to underwrite the whole damn thing, give them free medical. But if they wind up having a career-ending injury, great. You get a valuation. All of us that have done ESOPs and have sold our companies, there are valuation companies out there. You can get a panel that could come in and say, this guy would have made X amount more than likely in his pro career, and you do it by arbitration, and you pay the kid off. They might pay one every 2 or 3 years. And look, Lloyd's of London would take that in a heartbeat. And why not? And why not have all the universities underwrite it? I mean, they're printing money like it's crazy. It's a couple $1 trillion industry, and it's only going to get more when we go to 12 games. Absolutely do that.
Well, let me throw this. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, quickly, because you might be going to break, but
no, we're good.
Logic. I love the reductio ad absurdum fallacy. Let's reduce this to its completely absurd conclusion. How far can this go? And who's to say Marcus Harris? I hate to pick on him because he's laid his guts on the line all year long. I love the kid, But and I'm not mad at him that he's opting out of this bowl game. But you don't have to go very far logically for Marcus Harris to say, look, we're 6-5 going into the Iron Bowl. Alabama's got a bunch of savages that I'm going to be trying to go against. I could get injured. I'll just sit out the Iron Bowl. And then all of a sudden the Iron Bowl doesn't mean much because, you know, I'm playing both teams with the full roster. So I think there needs to be more pressure from the media. They love to pressure social justice. They define. And I think there needs to be more talk like Rob ranted about at the outset of the show.
Well, here's a little Savant Saturday. Let's take a few good men and Colonel Nathan R. Jessup.
Yeah.
Call the president. We're giving up our position in Cuba. You know, and remember that scene, and that's basically what we're talking about here. And you know, to Doug's point.
Well, let me throw this one at you. And we got a few minutes before the break. Y'all are all right. And my phone is blowing up with text, and you can send them in on YouTube too. But the prevailing opinion, the winds are at your back because you're right. Doug just made it obvious. Wait till you know, I got Marcus Harris. He could have said, yeah, I'm gonna sit this one out. You watch. It's a slippery slope.
It's coming.
It's like when Dr. Jack Kevorkian was getting away with what he was getting away with. People said, okay, when are we going to come to the point when people say, I love mom and dad, but they're really eating away at my inheritance, you know, every day. And you play golf with that, you know, doctor, and you're saying, hey, man, why don't you trip over the plug? I mean, you better watch out. You better watch out that the portal doesn't come to high school. And whose fault is it? It's the adults, because the adults are letting the tail wag the dog. I don't give a damn if my kids like me or not. I'm not their friend. I love them unconditionally. But you know what? The older they get, the more they tell me how much they love me. They say, golly, Dad, I used to think you were cruel. And I'm not perfect. But I'm going to tell you what, these parents that coddle their kids and just shove them up to the front of the line from elementary school to middle school through high school because they're a good athlete, they can jump, they can throw a ball, and forget their grades, and they play mommy and daddy ball. They play all that politics. They go to every practice with the tailgate down on the truck with a cooler of beer, virtue signaling to that coach. If you want the money for that new turf on the field or that new press box or whatever, by God, you better play my son even though he sucks. That's what you better watch out for. And I have no time for people like that. And I'm going to tell you what, stay out of politics at work, stay in production. Doug Dean.
Well, yeah.
Golfing group.
Let's expand this. It sounds like we all four agree on this issue. My instinct tells me, you know, maybe there's a generational quarterback. Like when Tua was coming out, he had already had to overcome a lot of injury. And suppose he was medically cleared for the bowl game that year. Suppose he had been injured early in the year. There might be instances like that. I'm understanding. I'm willing to say,
yeah, injury is a different deal.
Yeah, this is a unique situation. There's going to be an NFL team in the first round that will take a chance on him despite injury. But most of what we're talking about are players who have been healthy all year long. And it seems to me with these NIL collectives that have been formed to stay competitive, that if the organization is paying big six and seven figures, Auburn and Alabama are probably in a bidding for a 5-star wide receiver in Saraland in South Alabama, Ryan Williams. So it would seem like the NIL deal, which is a contract, a written document, could have language in it that for receipt of this NIL compensation, the player agrees that if eligible and he will play, he's healthy, he will play every game through the bowl game. And I don't know if that language is in it. Probably what will happen is one school will agree not to use that language, so that gets recruiting. So we've got a mess, and we've spent most of this year talking about the chaos of college football. That a lot of it's going to lead to a better product, a better game, more money for athletes. But some of it is a royal mess like this.
Well, we're going to have in the hour number 2, my personal attorney, Jack Turner. God, I love this guy. A graduate, Millsap's graduate undergrad, but law school, Hugo Black College of Law, University of Alabama. Great guy. Him and his father, John, they're as good of people as you'll ever know. We're going to get into that with Jack. I hope y'all can stay on. Ben Troupe's going to join us. Billy Roberts going to jump in. But I call Jack the barrister in residence for Sidelines. He is absolutely brilliant in breaking down constitutional law, antitrust laws, and everything. And it will be fun to get that answer. Doug, I'd never even thought about it like that, where you could be compartmentalizing it. This school says, yeah, you do. But here's the thing. You know, we're supposed to be teaching, as Eddie Robinson famously would say, you know, you get knocked down, you get back up. You get knocked down, you get back up. You keep getting back up. But when you don't get up, young man, you are finished. You got to keep fighting. We're supposed to teach lessons of life. Letting these kids, I mean, I would be ashamed if I quit on my team. You know, if he was wearing a hoodie, he should have covered his face. Because as that team was struggling out there, when they were struggling out there against Missouri, you know, and if I'm his teammates, I'm looking at him going, you remember the scene in the movie The Longest Yard? Not the one with Adam Sandler. And I love that guy. He's funny as hell, but there's only one with Burt Reynolds. When they knew he was throwing the game. Remember that? I mean, and they let him have it. All right. This is unbelievable panel that we have here. I mean, Doug Dean up in the highlands of North Carolina, Dave Tompkins in the low country of South Carolina. How about extremes there? And Frank Duffy escaping the snows in the mountains of North Georgia, near Tampa right now. And we had a little bit of snow yesterday morning over here in Parkin in the Memphis area, but not much. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back. I'm going to let these dogs out of the cage and let them eat, because y'all are on fire. People are loving what you're saying. If you're going to run for office, you've got a lot of votes. All right, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break on Sidelines.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal, and the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Yeah, curve everything else. Win, 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 win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
I tell you what, the Sidelines band with Frank on the fiddle, Doug Dean on the bass, and snare drummer Dave Tompkins. I'm really.
This is Dr. McGill. Oh, brother, we're out there.
Yes.
Hey, you're typecasting me as a Cajun. What am I, Doug Kershaw on the fiddle? Sawing everything off?
Hey, you can't have without a fiddle. It's not country music. No, but that's the great thing about it. There's nothing better than bluegrass, and they got that serious bluegrass channel, which I do listen to a lot. Hey, want to say something real quick too. Today, Saturday, open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m., 6 p.m. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the most beautiful historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. They've got hiking boots like these Danner low-cut boots. I mean, I could run a 10K in these things. They're so well built. They've also got the second largest collection of Filson gear in the Southeast. They've got the luggage. They've got STS luggage and Western wear, Wrangler, Ariat. They also have Pendleton and Schaefer. I'm wearing a Pendleton corduroy shirt. This thing is so smooth. It feels like a combination of velvet and suede. It is so comfortable, and it's warm too. But they've got 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Charles Hall, the owner, his wife Laura, Raven, the whole crew are out there. They'll take care of you. Check them out, HewlettandDunn.com. And that vitamin shop, 5338 Goodman Road, South Haven, Mississippi. That's the first of 2 locations that Justin Ross and his partner are opening. This one Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. They have healthcare and specialist nutritionists that will sell you what you need. I buy the probiotics there. I buy the goo and the shot blocks for working out. They have all kinds of products there, but the people there, you won't get the, I don't know, I just work here. These people are invested in the company. Proud to be associated with them and have them as a sponsor. The Vitamin Shop, 5338 Goodman Road, and coming the first week of March in Oxford, Mississippi, another one, the Vitamin Shop. All right, gentlemen, let's get going here. Got to say something. My good friend David Baker was quoted in the media in Memphis after that win. And, you know, about Memphis getting the win to go 10-3. You can't ask for a better win and a better season. Fan David Baker said, I have been to several of the games this year. He goes to almost every one of them with Bobby John. And we just kept putting it together, kept fighting hard, and here we go. Bottom line is, y'all have all alluded to it. I've seen a lot of care in these bowl games. And you know what I'm a fan of? The Texas State Rice game in the First Responders Bowl. No team from either roster quit on their team. Now, you can say, well, they're not any high draft picks. I don't care. They could have said, then it really doesn't matter. But they hung in there. They fought. They showed up. Can you imagine? I'm telling you, there would be no football today. It wouldn't have survived this long if we'd have had these little candy asses like we have today in charge. That's why we're going to get through them. The free market will work them out, but I wouldn't want anything to do. Marvin Harrison Jr., good luck to you, whatever pro career you have or don't have. But you saw last night, and I wonder if anybody on ESPN or Fox Sports is going to have the guts to call him out. They won't, because they drink the Kool-Aid, and as one of our earlier people said, ESPN takes their orders from Disney. I digress.
And Frank, the Tangerine Bowl back before there was a Disney.
That's right.
I love the Tangerine Bowl. Remember the guy with the big bright orange jacket, and the comb over, Oh, that was the best.
And you know who one of the first chairman of it was our old coach,
Paul Dietzel.
No. Charlie McClendon.
McClendon. Oh, wow. Charlie Mack.
Yeah.
Charlie Mack.
In fact, it was his last bowl game in 1979 where we beat Wake Forest in the Tangerine Bowl. And they were so taken by how charismatic Charlie Mack was and such a character that they had him come run the bowl.
Yeah. You know what? You think about that. I mean, Doug, you and all of us, I love these bowl games because I'm going to tell you something. Come January 8th around midnight, college football is over for temporarily. Yeah, we got the Senior Bowl and all, but just hang in there. About February 10th or 15th, somebody will start spring practice. And Doug Dean, Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, and all of our listeners and viewers, we'll make it. Somehow we'll figure it out. But you're gonna remember, like we haven't even talked about these bowl games today. Mike in Memphis, Mike and the Mechanics, Go Rebels. Ole Miss could win their 11th game. They've never done that in school history. And they got some pretty damn good tradition. But Penn State coming to, they're going to Atlanta. Let's talk about that game. And then we got another game after that. We got a bunch of good games today.
Well, it's going to be classic offense versus defense, right? Yeah. I mean, you think of Penn State, you think of a cold outside game, and with Ole Miss and with Lane Kiffin, Penn State's in trouble because they got a fast track in the Mercedes-Benz, and let me tell you, I think Ole Miss is going to throttle them. I really do. Ole Miss, you give Lane Kiffin 30 days to work on an offensive game plan, I'm telling you, they're going to score a lot of points. If this thing gets into the 30s, I think Penn State doesn't have a chance.
It seems to me that there's going to be one of two outcomes. Either Penn State wins like 17-13 or Ole Miss wins 41-17.
It screams of parlay, Ole Miss and over, parlay it, and Penn State and under, parlay it.
Yep. I love it.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, Doug, you look at Penn State. James Franklin, 3-17 in top 10 matchups. Lane Kiffin, I think it's Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin. In that order, the three best coaches in the SEC. I think Lane Kiffin is going to have this team ready to go. I don't think they got anybody quitting on them. They may have a player, I don't know, but I think Ole Miss is going over there to win it. Penn State, I think, has got a few players that have quit on them. I like the mindset of Ole Miss in this game.
Well, yeah, what I was going to say a little more big picture, and honestly, I haven't done the analytics on this matchup, but I don't disagree with anything Dave or Frank said about how the game is likely to go. I do know this. I think Ole Miss, starting with Lane Kiffin, but his whole team really, really wants this game. And I'll tell you, if you look at what Kiffin he has crushed it, the transfer portal, at least on paper. Some of the most sought after players that are transferring. And of course, you always have to footnote, there's a reason someone's transferring. It didn't work out. Maybe they're not as good as their original billing and star ratings, but Kiffin it's win now, baby. Because you look at the schedule that Ole Miss got blessed with by the at least on paper, that he doesn't have to go against his nemesis, Coach Saban, regular season. Yeah. He gets Georgia and Oxford, and the rest of their schedule, again, you have to say on paper, because somebody think is going to be great will fool us going into next season. Maybe it'll be one of the two incoming schools, Texas or Oklahoma. It won't be surprising if Texas is really good next year. It would be a little bit surprising to me if Oklahoma, say, a 10-win team their first year in the league. But we are not going to be able to slow down the PR train of Ole Miss as the fashionable, sexy pick to not only make the playoff, but possibly win the Southeastern Conference regular season next year. And playing will to be determined which team can be good enough. Because remember, we don't have divisions anymore. It's a beauty contest. Which two teams look like they deserve to play in the SEC game? So, boy, if they win today over Penn State, which is a helmet logo team, not that great this year, even though they had a decent season, Ole Miss is going to be the talk of college football heading into this spring. Agree or disagree, guys?
If the 2024 season is the Kentucky Derby, Ole Miss is like in sixth position as they get to the third turn. And that's where the winner often comes from. As it makes the fourth turn and starts his move and wins coming down the home stretch. I think that's where I think Lane Kiffin is trying to position himself right now. And so, I think there's every incentive for Ole Miss to win big today.
But just in case they get a little too cocky, I did have to joke with a few of my Ole Miss buddies and ask them if they knew how to get to Atlanta.
Well, they're there right now.
I know. Hey, it took the Peach Bowl to get them here. They haven't been here for an SEC championship game yet.
Hey, let me throw something here. Maury Gaston. I believe the Tangerine Bowl was Dye's first bowl game at Auburn following the 82 season versus Boston College. And Auburn won that game. But let me throw another one out there. Really cool about the Tangerine Bowl. 1979, Charlie Pell's first year at Florida coming from Clemson, they went 0-10-1. The next year, they went 8-4 because they beat Maryland in the Tangerine Bowl. And 11 of their 22 starters were former high school quarterbacks. They'd switched to other positions. And at the time, it was the greatest turnaround in college football history. 10-1 to 8-4. A lot of history, a lot of tradition. And I know it comes as a shock to these 19 and 20-year-old kids who were pampered and had their ass kissed their entire lives by their sycophant parents and the coaches and the national woke media. These, universities were there hundreds of years before they ever got there. You're just a little blip on the radar, dude. You're an afternoon sprinkle in the big picture of life. Okay? Just realize that.
And in your brilliant sponsor promo, you failed to mention the Maury Douglas Gaston signature duckhead boxers.
That's right. Yes. By the way, Hewlett and Dunn has more duck heads than any place I've ever seen in my life. Doug Dean.
That's all I wore in the 80s, man, was duck heads. Those are great.
Well,
they were
coming back.
What I was going to say, Duff, is one of the many things that are beautiful and fun about LSU fans is they're willing to be harsh but true. And do you know how to get to Atlanta, Ole Miss fans? It's harsh, but and then I was going to also say that Tangerine Bowl, Rob. It's funny how the game winner, the plays that come back to you easily in your memory, particularly with the team you root for. And if I'm not mistaken, the game winner in that one, Randy Campbell, they run option left, and number
Randy Campbell,
seen him play before, is going to take the pitch. But there's a defender in between Randy and Bo, and he pitches the ball over the defender.
That's right.
Wow.
With his right hand, pulls it in and scores to beat Flutie in Boston College.
That is right. And wasn't Randy Campbell the quarterback when Auburn finally would Bo over the top? They beat Alabama?
Yeah, the same year.
Hartsville, Alabama, 14? Morgan Academy. Yeah.
Did he wear number 14?
Yes.
Yeah. But here's the thing. All of y'all have incredible recall, steel traps, whatever we want to call it. But the richness, the depth that's in your minds is because of these games, of watching them and living them and going to them. Audrey and I, Christmas Eve, were at Costco, and they have all these great books. And you know what we bought a copy of? Go bring it in here, Mildred. Pow, down. Aesop's Fables. Aesop's Fables, man. And I keep going back. Everybody is bitching about what's going on and all. And there's a great fable in there in Aesop's Fables, the ass, the ape, and the mole. And the ass says, well, everyone makes fun of my big floppy ears and my goofy looking tail, and I'm kind of ugly looking. And here it is, Aesop's Fables, folks. You see it? And
beautiful.
So, yeah. So, and then the ape says, well, he goes, I wish I had a bushy tail like Mr. Fox. And the mole says, lighten up, guys. I'm mostly blind and deaf. I don't have much of a tail, and I got to worry about y'all stepping on me. So be grateful for what you got. That's why I always close out every show by saying we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. The preamble to the Constitution does not read, we the government. It's we the people. We'll fix this mess. I promise you that.
Well, we're going to have a great entertaining product next year in the SEC. And I think we're going to have a great entertaining product in places like the Big Ten as well. But the SEC is just going to be phenomenal. I sure hope Coach Saban sticks around for another year. I believe he will. My heart tells me he will. I've been told by many that this is his last year. But even if he does go, then that the Lane Kiffins, that becomes really interesting. Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league becomes very interesting. What does Dabo do? It just more stories would be engendered from that. But we're gonna have a great entertaining product. And Rob, you're always right about this. The market will work itself out as long as we let the free market do its thing. Yeah,
it really. And I'm gonna tell you, all of y'all, the business acumen, the skills, y'all are successful in what you do outside of this show, and you're successful on this show because they marry together. And that's the thing. Hey, if Nick Saban coaches another 5 years, great. I never pull for I always want to compete against the best. Iron sharpens iron. And so, who knows what he's going to do. But I do think he's going to look back at this Alabama team and say, this is my favorite team ever. it's going to be his favorite because they were counted out so early. The quarterback situation was considered to be a hopeless, situation, and they look where they are. They're 12-1, and I still think Georgia should have been in the playoffs. Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Michigan. Those to me are the 4 best teams. And I think FSU, Doug Dean, don't you think they got hurt in the playoff committee's eyes because the ACC was perceived by the marketplace as weak? Virginia Tech's down, Miami's down, Clemson's down, North Carolina's down. You agree?
Yeah, totally. And, and logically, I guess, if you're a Seminole fan, and we have some of those that tune into the show, you have a logical argument why it wasn't fair. Sure. But the committee chose, to value, I think, the 2 things. It was unacceptable to them, and I can't blame them, to completely leave the SEC out of a 4 playoff. That would fly in the face of understanding degree of difficulty in a schedule. And secondly, there was a pretty strong argument that when you run the table in the ACC, you should deduct some degree of points because you only play 2 or 3 super tough teams. Now, FSU fans will say, well, look, we beat LSU. Fair, not unfair. That goes into the algorithm. But it was a year really needed a 16th playoff for it to be both logical, fair, and not penalize a team that had a loss in the case of Alabama in the toughest conference that we've seen in 20 years.
Thankfully, we won't have this issue going forward.
Yeah, and people talk about 13 and 12. I don't think that's gonna matter. The bottom 3 or 4 teams in a 12-team playoff, unlikely for them to run the table. But there's story there because you are going to have a 12 seed beat a 5 seed one year. You're going to have an 11 seed beat a 6 seed. That's really cool. And that's kind of, it will have some March Madness moments. You may have, a 10 seed make it all the way to the Final Four. That's really cool. So it'll have the March Madness factor to it. But I think in the end, the best team will win.
Dave,
you know what? Go ahead, Doug. 2
things can be true maybe at once. I agree with everything you said, Dave, but I think that where we will get the bitching, and I'll probably be one of them doing it on behalf of some SEC team, is that when you get down to about the 9th selection through 12, there's going to be a third best SEC team that might have 2, even 3 losses, and those losses, let's make it Ole Miss. If Ole Miss loses to Georgia regular season, to, I don't know, a very good LSU team, and they lose to the SEC champion, let's say that's Alabama, good grief. Somebody's going to get put over that 3-loss team.
Well, think about this year, and just we'll do some hypotheticals. Let's say James Madison was qualified to go to the playoffs. It was a 12-team playoff. Let's say they hadn't lost to Appalachian State, so they'd have been undefeated. They'd have been the 12 seed. They lost to Air Force in their bowl.
Yeah.
My team, Army, beat Air Force 23-3 in Denver, I might add. So that's a little window into the disparity between a 12 seed and something else. So, but we'll see. It just makes it all for the product gets even more entertaining next year with Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC in the 12-team playoff. So I can't wait.
Going to get to 16-team playoff pretty quick, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's something I want to throw at you. Historically, and I love to do this research. We all know football started November 6th, 1869, Rutgers 6, Princeton 4 up in New Jersey. And then in the late 1890s, they started declaring national champions. Penn's got and Yale have 26. Harvard's got 1 million of them. And it all started to change really in the early 1900s. But it really changed when Alabama won that Rose Bowl in 25. The South locked in. But going back over history, I've done this research. There's on average 4 teams a year will claim the national championship. So the 4 is very much like an invitational. You go to 12, 13 will win. 16, I think, will be the right number. There's, you take a look at the top players in any state in high school football. There are only so many impact players, and you need 2 or 3 impact players in every recruiting class on offense and defense, and you always need to sign a kicker because special teams are a third of every game. So all of y'all collectively nailed it. It's going to create interest, and Florida State, hell yeah, they've got a claim. But now their reaction, it's not what happens to you in life, it's how you react. 30 players from Florida State have quit and will not play in the bowl game? Shame on them, because you're representing your university's brand.
And why are they really quitting? Because they know they're going to get their ass stomped today by Georgia. That's why they're quitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one's going to get ugly early.
Yeah. And I'm disappointed because I got Johnny Ballpark Franks on this show a lot. I love him. And he knows Florida State well. He graduated from Florida State. He's our age. He is from Huntsville, grew up in a house full of Auburn fans. He went to Alabama and then graduated from Florida State. And he can make the argument as well as anybody. But you know what? The fact that we're talking about it a month after the fact tells you why college football is the greatest game. As much as I love college basketball, when the Final Four, when that Monday night game, when the last second ticks off the clock, basketball's over. There's no controversy. But there's nothing like March Madness, though, in terms of a tournament. One day a year, Dave, you worked for how many years at Churchill Downs as chief marketing officer? But for 2-3 days a year, the whole world is myopically focused on Louisville, Kentucky, and the Fisher hot dogs that they sell in the state. Do they sell Fisher hot dogs there?
Especially next May for the 150th, also the 149th running of the Oaks, the premier race for the fillies, and we're pointing to Mr. Duffy's horse. His filly.
Dave, help me out on something, because we're bringing our producer on here very soon. Can you get us set up to do sidelines with all of us at the Kentucky Derby for the 150th anniversary next year in May?
I'll give it a shot. My one of my former employees has she now has my job there, and she's a wonderful Kentucky Wildcat. So I'll see what I can do with Miss Casey.
All right,
my daughter picked a really bad time to decide to graduate from college this May on the 150th. I said, I'll even put some more tuition money in if you could just hang off for another year, and I can go to the 150th. So.
One more degree.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just fun, these events. And so give me, Doug Dean, I know you said you can stay on the first hour. Where in North Carolina are you? Are you up near Brevard and Mount Pisgah and Asheville?
The old Edwards Inn I bet is where he is.
You nailed it. I can see, I don't know what fairway it is, but I can see one of the club fairways from our the house we've got through VRBO. It's just a magnificent panorama to see. You have to, if you're kind of person that wants to have a different sporting activity every day, not your cup of tea, but in the warmer days, you can play golf. There's unbelievable hiking, and just a wide, they're inner tubing down a snowy mountain, probably man-made snow. Just a lot to do, and the restaurants are amazing. They're intimate. They tend to only have 15 or 20 tables. So you can go to eat a different place every night, every lunch and dinner. It's been spectacular. I am going to have to cut out, Rob. We didn't say anything about my guys.
I know.
And how that may go.
I think
being too objective
for them.
This is the first show in many a Savant Saturday where we have not talked about 4th and 31.
Oh, geez. You had to bring it
up. You had to bring it up, didn't you? Doug, you have the floor.
I hate ESPN. The way they're promoting the playoffs has resulted in most of us having to see 4th and 31 about 100 times in this holiday season. But that's the way it goes. Congrats to Alabama for getting there on such an unlikely play. But it is a play they worked on and fully intended. And I'm staring at my analytics on the phone, and Auburn has a 99.5% chance to win that game. And that's But this is an exhibition game, really, between Maryland and Auburn. Maryland's playing without Talia. Speaking of opt-outs, you would think that goes advantage Auburn, but Auburn we're really short on wide receivers, and we've had a few of our own opt out on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
I think Hugh Freeze is going to line up and try to play smash mouth. See if with that running back room we've got, looks like Jarquez Hunter will play, and he's believed that he will come back next year. So Auburn didn't even have to sign a running back. They're loaded in that running back room. You'll probably see more of Jeremiah Cobb today. But I would remind my Auburn brethren that we have become infamous for making backup quarterbacks look like Heisman candidates. Be careful assuming that because Talia, if I'm pronouncing that right, Dave, is out for this one, that it automatically means Auburn runs away with this one. I would take the under. I think Auburn will play pretty good defense. So will Maryland. We're short on wide receivers, as I said. So, I don't know what the over-under is, Frank, but if it's anything past about 30, 35, I would be happy taking the under in this.
I think Auburn's already got the biggest benefit. They got those extra 20 days of practice. That is what I think was the biggest thing. Auburn setting up for next year and having a run to get into the playoffs. I think that was pivotal. You got that. You've got spring. I think that's the big takeaway for Auburn making it to be bowl eligible this year in Hugh Freeze's first year. He gets those extra practices to implement his system into the Auburn, lexicon, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
agreed.
I agree. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I mean, we hadn't talked. We're gonna talk about it more in the second hour, but Doug, you're right. Auburn has a history of making themselves look like a stage prop when a backup quarterback comes in. You can't.
You only have to go back to this year's Texas A&M game.
Yeah.
When Wegman goes out, and we made Max Johnson made him look like a genius for one game, and he didn't distinguish himself the rest of the year. The thing that Auburn people should be excited about, to Frank's point, heading into the spring, I think Hugh Freeze has seen enough of delegating play calling to whoever the OC is. I think he will not call every play, but he'll build the play sheet each week, and he will be suggesting. And if your CEO suggests something to you, he doesn't really mean for it to be optional or elective. He's suggesting 60% of the play calls, and I think you'll see exactly that today. It's going to be fun.
Here's my one Auburn prediction going into next year. The SEC basketball is going to be a meat grinder, and Auburn's going to have a 500 record in the conference, maybe one game above 500, and they'll win one or two games in the SEC tournament, and therefore earn themselves a 10 seed in the big dance. But watch them get all the way to the Elite Eight. I really like this Auburn basketball team.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Billy. Good seeing you, buddy. I've got to run too. I got to go hit some balls so I can actually play some golf today. I'll see y'all.
All right, you're a scratch golfer. Frank, we'll do it again next week. Hey, Billy Roberts in Brookhaven, not Atlanta, native of LaGrange, plow 'em up Grangers, born in Houston, the original Rocket City. Huntsville's the Rocket City. It's the smartest city. Now, Billy, this is Dave Tompkins in the Low Country in Beaufort, South Carolina. Billy, I'm sure you've been to Beaufort. Billy's a 4-5 tennis player, pretty damn good. Started out at Georgia and came to Auburn. We were roommates at Auburn. And I'm going to tell you something, man. This is Savant Saturday. Great stuff there with Doug Dean over in North Carolina. What's the name of that resort he's at? It didn't look like Motel 6.
Old Edwards Inn.
Yes, the old Edwards Inn.
North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah.
Just down the road from Cashiers. And then Atlanta having the best adult tennis league probably in the world.
Yeah. Indeed. Absolutely.
What Billy, 45,000 people in that tennis league over there?
I think so, or maybe more by now. I mean, that was the number 30 years ago. It might be 80,000 today. It's huge. They call it the Atlanta Lawn Tennis Association, and
that's it.
You know, they take over the courts every weekend. You can hardly find a tennis court in Atlanta 12 months out of the year. It's remarkable, actually.
Well, I grew up playing tennis. I wasn't as good as you, but I didn't play golf. If I grew up playing golf, it's such an addictive sport. I think I would have lived on the golf course, but I love tennis. In Memphis, we had Derek Barton, Tommy Buford, Jim Ladyman, Stan Jones. Those were the people I took tennis lessons from as a kid. They were so good, and used to have to hit 100 times, Billy, from the far right baseline over to the far, to the serve court, to the receiving end, and hit the white towel. And my mother one time said, "God, how long will this take?" The coach said, "Until he hits it 101 times, not just 100. Lessons of life.
That parallels the classic Pat Dye interview answer when they asked him, how long will it take to beat Alabama? And he said 60 minutes. I mean, that is the best interview answer of all time for any job anywhere, anyhow.
It is.
Yeah,
and you know what? I mean, Dave is from Mountain Brook. Billy grew up Alabama fan, graduated from West Point. Spent 5 years over in Germany and in Europe during the Cold War. We're all the same age. We had a great discussion. Now, Dave was just singing the praises of Marvin Harrison Jr. standing on the sidelines while his team. I mean, Billy. I've had it. Who is the guy in the movie Network or Broadcast said, "I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore." But that's Billy. Are you at the point now? Because Billy's dad, Billy's dad is a mechanical engineer. Jack Turner, kind of move up a little bit where you look like you've been beheaded, almost beheaded. Raise your camera up a little bit so you can get on the level here. Can you see us, Jack? Yeah, come on up here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, want to get him up a little bit. But Billy, Dave has grown up. His background is really cool. Growing up a lifelong Alabama fan there in Mountain Brook, goes to West Point. I don't know if he loves West Point or he loves West Point more than Alabama. But he knows he used to be the chief marketing director at Churchill Downs in Louisville. And by the way, Dave, I got to ask you, first time I went to Louisville many years ago, many moons ago, I had Fisher hot dogs everywhere I went. Were they a sponsor of anything at the Derby?
I think they're a small sponsor. The big sponsors are all the Brown Foreman brands. So it's kind of a liquor event, if you will.
Yeah.
The one time only time in my life I ever pulled against Alabama was the 1988 Sun Bowl. Army played Alabama, and we lost 29-28 because Derek Thomas blocked 2 of our field goals.
No shame in that.
That is the biggest victory in our school's history.
Yeah.
He might be, look at most schools' career sack leaders. Speaking of Derek Thomas out of Miami, most schools' career sack leaders have 26 or 27 sacks. Okay. And if you think about it, Jack Turner's on now, our barrister in residence, proud graduate of Millsaps University, Hugo Black College of Law, Alabama. Him and his dad and his mom, Elizabeth, his sister, all married, great people, my friends, all Alabama people, as Alabama as it gets. But he's our barrister in residence. So this is Dave Tompkins from the Low Country in Beaufort, South Carolina. Jack, Mountain Brook native, Alabama fan, West Point graduate, and Billy Roberts, my roommate from college in Brookhaven, not Atlanta. Okay, just telling you that to be straight up. But the cool thing about it is Savant Saturday, man, we bounce all over the place. And let me assure you, folks, I'm drinking out of my Braves. The Braves have a college day for every team. Billy gave me this. It's a tumbler from Auburn Day at the Braves games back in the spring, and it does a great job of holding my Bailey's Irish cream with my coffee in the morning. We're having a ball here today. Jack, let me throw this at you right now because Billy's with Oracle. These are 2 really, really smart guys. You've forgotten more than the collective world knows about constitutional law, antitrust laws, and everything. Someone brought up Doug Dean in the first hour from the old Edwards Resort over in North Carolina, and he's talking about
Louisiana when I was a kid.
Yeah. the trust, it was about the contracts. Like if you had an NIL deal, let's say Billy signed $1 million deal with Auburn, and you could say, okay, in order to get your NIL money, you got to play every game, or Michael Jordan or whoever it is. You have to play in every game. Let's say you quit. Don't give me the opt-out term. I'm not going to sanitize it. You're a quitter or you're a winner. You quit on your team. Could they put language in there that says you have to forfeit the money or pro rata part of it or whatever? Here we go. The barrister is on the clock.
In terms of general contract law, yeah. I mean, a contract generally can include any legal term the two parties agreed to. Now, I don't know if there would be some kind of NCAA regulation that would govern that, but if there's not, then yeah, you could absolutely say that this is a condition that you've got to be ready, willing, and able to play. Now, obviously, the player can't control whether or not the coach puts them in, but if the coach says, you're up, and they decide, no, I want to sit this one out, yeah, I don't see any reason you couldn't put that in the contract.
All right, now, Jack, if you could say this, explain to people kind of a refresher, and then we're going to bounce around because we want to talk about the Alabama, all these games. But as far as NIL goes, the 9-0 ruling back that went into effect July 1st of 2021 by the United States Supreme Court, was that, what were they saying, that you cannot infringe on an individual's right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and earning a living? Explain it and put it in the vernacular and take all that minutia and break it down so even Jethro Bodine and my 95-year-old father can understand it.
Basically, they were saying that the NCAA rules, the NCAA basically was a cartel and was using its market power and its rules to restrain trade and prevent players from getting money that federal antitrust law would normally entitle them to. Years ago, and this, I think, was kind of the seed for this, to take it further, NCAA had rules because, parity has always been a big thing for them. They had limits on how much an assistant coach could make. And at least one or more assistant coaches challenged that under the Sherman Antitrust Act. And the federal court said, yep, that's a price fixing, it's a restraint of trade. That's basically the same as like, if the airlines say, I'm going to raise my rates out of Memphis on Tuesday, you do it on Wednesday, and we'll all be, at parity. That's more or less what the schools were doing through the NCAA. And of course, you can't do that. And the NCAA got popped for a big judgment because with antitrust, typically you get treble your damages. And so the players basically did the same thing. It took a few years, but they got into more or less the same position. They said the NCAA could not restrain their ability to make a living either.
Well, the thing is, it's driving people crazy, and everybody's asking me about, what can they do, what's legal and what's not. What do you think is going to happen before we get to football on NIL? The free market will work this stuff out. Will fans just say, I've had it, I've supported enough of these people, and they've quit, or they're no good, or whatever? That's what I'm talking about with the free market. And so you've got a few NIL guys, big deals out there, but I think that's where it's going to fix itself.
Well, if I could see the future, I wouldn't be doing this from my office. I'd be doing this from an island somewhere that I own. But yeah, but as far as what people think, what people are going to do, yeah, I think that's a real risk that we're running here. College football has always been very distinct from any other sport for a lot of reasons. And one of them is there's just a passion there that you don't have with professional sports. And one thing I hate about more or less every change that has happened since the early 90s in this game is it's becoming more like the NFL. And if I wanted to watch the NFL, I'd be sitting home on Sundays watching the damn NFL. But I love college football. And
correct.
I'm not a big fan of the 12-team playoff. I wasn't really a big fan of the 4-team playoff. In and of itself, I thought it was okay, but I was afraid it was going to end up getting expanded like it has, and devaluing the regular season. But yeah, and I think maybe I'm just a singular grouchy old man, but I suspect more and more players are going to get pissed, or more fans are going to get mad, and you're going to see, you're going to see a change in attitude with the players, and that happens. Every generation is different from the previous one, but yeah, a kid who's making more than his coach is going to have some bargaining power that you've never seen before. Guys like the dictators, like Coach Bryant and Woody Hayes and Bo Schembechler, who could more or less stare them down. That's not going to be the case in the future. It's going to be more like the NFL.
All I know is someone just wrote in, counselor, is that you out there, counselor? Come out, wherever you are.
Is that his name? in the movie?
Max Cady.
Max Cady, yeah, Cape Fear, another North Carolina film.
Oh, that's one of the greatest scenes of all time. Billy Roberts in Brookhaven, not Atlanta, native of LaGrange, born in Houston, a coast-to-coast traveler, 30-plus years in IT, high-tech with Oracle. Billy, let's talk right now. You got a bunch of games today. You heard the barrister in residence, Jack Turner, saying it, but of the games that are being played, have you watched a lot of bowl games? Because I do. I feel like I've got scoliosis. I've watched so much football, but I stretch regularly, and I'm having some good Baileys in my Yeti tumbler from Auburn Day at the Braves Stadium.
Yeah, the Kentucky Clemson game was a good one. That was interesting, and went right down to the wire. Clemson won it, and then I thought the Missouri-Ohio State game was interesting. I mean, you could argue that Missouri won the game, but did they really beat Ohio State? I think Ohio State had 16 opt-outs, which I think proves the point that was made a second ago that it's the teams in the bowl game is not the team that played during the regular season. But before we get to that, Rob, I wanted to dial back and ask a question about the NIL in the context of the eternal fight of whether a football player is an employee of the university or, are they a student athlete? And, for a long time in the era that we all grew up in, they made a huge distinction of calling these guys student athletes. And I always thought that it was like an academic distinction. Like, these guys are students. They're not just your mercenary football players. But I read an article earlier this week about NIL and kind of where it's going. And it sounds to me, based on the article I read, that the NLRB is kind of circling and they would love to designate these athletes as employees in the university so they could form a union. That's kind of what the goal is. And NIL is kind of a finger in the dike right now to give these kids what they want, give them unlimited ability to move around. Anything they can do to kind of create an appeasement strategy, if you will, so that they don't, become a union and become employees where you've got workman comp issues and things. I mean, football players are going to get hurt. And I guess that's just a Pandora's box that nobody wants open. I'd love to get the perspective on that, because I thought that was an interesting position that I hadn't really delved into too much.
It's a great question. I mean, right now you've with the Democratic administration, the NLRB is going to tend to be more union and employer friendly, and unions have been shrinking for years. They're always looking for new sources of membership and revenue, and college athletes could potentially be a great one. If you want to know or look at the effect of that unionization has on sports, look at the pro leagues, especially baseball. The fact that the Major League Baseball Players Association has managed to keep out salary caps and things like that, for as long as they have. It's kind of amazing. Also, baseball's not governed by antitrust rules, which is another kind of a legal anomaly. It is something that universities are going to fight like hell. You've got two basically Democratic-leaning interest groups, both in front of a Democrat-controlled NLRB, university administrators and unions will be at each other's throats. I'd be fascinated to know how that's going to shake out. But
if you think about Rob's comment a second ago, that NIL is a thing that's going to, there'll be some order in the current chaos and it'll kind of straighten itself out. I'm not so sure. It sounds like, in order to ward off any kind of union, you got 18-year-olds driving Ferraris, and like who needs a union? So it sounds like we're going to have to live with this, and it's going to have to be tolerated. And the unrestricted movement of players is something that they're not going to tackle. Basically anything to ward off this union effort, to the point that you made, that the baseball union is extraordinarily powerful. Not so much, the NBA and the NFL, because they deal with salary caps and things like that. But the baseball union has been pretty difficult, to deal with for decades and decades. So college football, I guess there's a huge worry that it's going to go that way. And that's why the NIL is being tolerated, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is. Another factor you'd have to think about is I think each university is going to be a separate employer. They're definitely not working for the NCAA or the conferences or anything like that. So to unionize an entity, you've got to get a majority of the employees there to sign union cards and be able to force a vote. And that's going to vary from school to school. If players feel like they're being taken care of already, they may not want to pay union dues. You saw in Chattanooga, they've got a Volkswagen plant there. VW was actually fine with the union coming in because they deal with the unions in Germany all the time and kind of prefer it. But you had local politicians, particularly in Tennessee, just fighting like hell against it, and they won. So, yeah, you could end up with some schools being unionized, others not. And, boy, what would that impact, would that have on recruiting and God knows what else?
Can you imagine Saban dealing with the football players local number 217 in Tuscaloosa? I mean, that would be a battle royal every day. I would love to see that. Right?
And then you can have like a right to work state like Tennessee, and you could have a conference that's a right to work conference versus a non. Dave Tompkins, jump in here with this. This is great conversation.
So I don't think it'll happen in our lifetime. So to me, a worst case scenario is about, finger in the dike and the dam breaking and stuff, is that at some point you lose fan interest, or fan interest starts to decline. And then that the first impact of that is the TV contracts, and then it goes from there, less money, and the sport, a generation from now is not the sport that we loved growing up and we still love now, notwithstanding NIL and transfer portals and stuff. I mean, right now it's still a very, very entertaining product. I think, there's probably different points of view on this Zoom right here, but I think the 12-team playoff will provide some more entertainment value. But if it continues on its current path, I believe at some point fan interest will wane, and then that'll be an inflection point from which it'll be hard to recover.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like any kind of sport when you got all the players are multimillionaires. Fans struggle to relate to that. Particularly when they're right out of high school and they're multimillionaires. I mean, that, it creates a distance between the viewing fan and the guys that they're watching on TV. We kind of grudgingly accept that, there's Tom Brady's in the world that live in $40 million houses or whatever, and I'm a free market guy. So I think, great, go make as much money as you can. I'm certainly not in favor of any kind of salary restrictions, even for, 18-year-olds. Like Rob said, I'm a tennis player, and, there's been decades of teenage tennis players that make $30 million a year, and nobody bats an eye about that. So it shouldn't be any different for a young football player in my mind.
Let me throw one at you. In the late 90s, I remember Stewart, you could do trades for $7.95. Who needs a financial advisor? Who needs a broker? Children could throw darts at the wall. And then we had March of 2000. The NASDAQ was a little over 5,000, and it got down to about 1,100. Stock market, everything got clobbered. And then all the truth came out that historically people who do it by themselves earn a little over 3% over time. Those who use a financial advisor, managed accounts, what have you, do about 9%. So it's all about customer behavior. Again, it's a diametrically opposing argument if you want to break it down, but I'm vehemently opposed to the government getting involved. They could screw up a 2-car funeral, okay? But their default always is go print more money. I learned how to drive a stick shift in the parking lot at McDonald's at Poplar and Estate. My friend Jeff Heimbach used to say, Bobby, if you can't find them, grind them. My dad didn't like hearing that, but it's a hell of a way to learn how to drive.
That was the greatest commercial of all time, the Ameritrade commercial with Stewart and his boss.
Yeah.
He's got a copy of his face when the commercial starts for the party.
And then sadly, after the market crashed, all those companies went broke. You didn't see them anymore. But I survived and I thrived. And guys like me, if you don't believe you bring value. So what I think is going to happen, and we're going to take a quick break. And Jack, before we take this break, let people know how they can contact you. Come up a little bit when you step back from the screen, you look sort of like the shrunken head at the Pink Palace, which, by the way, every time there's any kind of a party or a fundraiser at the Pink Palace Museum in Memphis, you'll notice the women will all be mingling and talking all in their cocktail dresses and everything. And the men will always gravitate toward that shrunken head in the glass case. What is it about the shrunken head? But now you're back. You were a microcephalic. Now you're a macrocephalic. You're normal. But let people know how they can reach out and contact you, because you're my personal attorney, the barrister in residence of Sidelines.
You can reach us. Our website is Crone Law Firm PLC. That's PapaLimaCharlie.com. My number is 901-737-7740.
All right. If you could, Jack, type that in on YouTube, and we'll put that up on the screen. I want to make sure people know that because it's a huge, huge deal. I've known Jack a long time, knows what he's talking about. Look, Dave, hang with us if you can. We're going to take a quick break. We got a few minutes. We're going to take this quick break to stay on schedule. Then we're going to come back. Love this discussion. There's a lot of football going on, but I think the depth of knowledge of this round table on Savant Saturday is so deep. You need to wear waders. It's a great, great crowd. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and let Dave. I just read Dave's private chat comment. I need to opt out after this break. Oh, boy.
But I still support my brotherhood of Savant Saturday.
I still support my brothers in the round table. No, I knew you had to get off because Dave, I don't know if Billy, you and Jack know this, but Dave is the Grand Marshal in a nude Shriners parade this morning in Beaufort, South Carolina. He's also a professional bowler, and he's a sponsor. His biggest sponsor is Odor Eaters. Remember that in the movie Kingpin? Yes, he's wearing a fez. Yes, he is. But Dave, look, great stuff as always. Dave got his MBA at Stanford after you got out of the Army?
Yes, I went from Army to Stanford.
So how long did you live out in Palo Alto?
Gosh, I was there a total of 17 years. 2 years in Palo Alto and then 15 in San Francisco. But we had a great football team back then. Dennis Green was our coach at Stanford. Touchdown Tommy Vardell, if you remember him, that played a long time for the Browns. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun being a Stanford fan back then. We also had a really good basketball team, Adam Keefe and others. That was a long time ago. Stanford lost last night to Arizona State. They blew a 15-point lead. They just suck now at football and basketball. And it's just a shame to see what's happened to them.
I love the coach y'all had. It looked like Marcus Welby from Father Knows Best, the basketball. Mike Montgomery, was that his name? Mike
Montgomery, absolutely. He was fantastic. Coach. We were a great team in the 90s and into the early 00s, and it was so fun to be a Stanford fan. Mad Dog Madsen, Brevin Knight, Arthur Lee. We had some really good basketball players.
They had a guy here with the Hawks, Josh Childress, that played at Stanford.
Big afro.
Yeah, he was a good player. Had a weird looking jump shot, but it always went in, so it doesn't matter what it looks like.
Hey, if weird works, I like weird. I mean, that's good with me. Hey, Dave, let's get you back on this week. Got a lot of bowl games. Give me a prediction real quick. And the Bromberg Jewelers Alabama touchdown play of the game by Bromberg Jewelers. John Forney here in Tuscaloosa. Coach Bryant tipping the hat as John and Jack Turner come to midfield here on Senior Day. Brought to you by Bromberg Jewelers, Mountain Brook, and throughout the great state of Alabama.
Well, the big skeleton in my closet is that I had a gambling problem, addiction when I was a kid. I had a bookie when I was in 9th grade at Mountain Brook. I had to go to Birmingham Country Club to pay off the men's grill and pay off the bookie every Tuesday. So I stopped gambling my senior year in high school. And the Rose Bowl almost brought me back. My dad bets, and I was going to talk to my dad's bookie. I was going to lay down a K on Alabama, and I decided not to because I didn't want to, at age 60, have a relapse. But I feel real good about the Tide, whether they're -1.5 or +1.5 or +2. I feel real good about that game.
You know what? Michigan, with their vaunted history, more than 1,000 wins, has a total of 8 Rose Bowl wins. You know how many Rose Bowl wins Alabama has? 5. And by the way, let me put this out. Our friend Gary Harris, who's on the show with us on Thursdays, from Tide 100.9 and WVUA in Tuscaloosa, Channel 23, reminded me, those of you that have a color TV, if not, encourage the neighbors to pull the blinds up so you can watch through their window. Roses of Crimson. It's a documentary that was done 20 years ago about Alabama's trip to the Rose Bowl in 1925. They beat Washington 20-19. Roses of Crimson, Alabama Public TV did this documentary, and it is absolutely incredible. Saturday, December 30th at 5 p.m. That's today. These are all times are central. Saturday, today, 5 p.m. Sunday, December 31st at 10 p.m. Monday, January 1st at 9 p.m. Only on WVUA 23 News. Just go to WVUA's website. You can find this. It is an outstanding documentary about Alabama's Rose Bowl win, down 19-7 in the third quarter. They came back and beat Washington, the national superpower, 20-19. And that 8-day train ride back where thousands of people were at every stop on the way at the train stops playing Dixie and in tears, emotional, because for 60 years the South had been basically emasculated after the war between the states. Whether you're a fan of Alabama or not, that is a Southern pride. 100 years later, we're like that pit bull that sunk our teeth into the ass of its prey. We won't let go. That's something we've got. We got all the good-looking women. We got the better weather, but that's just for starters. But I think this documentary everybody ought to watch, along with Sewanee 1899 Unrivaled, Norman Jepmenson and David Cruz's outstanding documentary, Sewanee 1899 Unrivaled.org. Go to the website, buy a copy. Give it as a New Year's present, okay? It's a great, great documentary. But watch that Roses of Crimson. Jack, get your dad to watch that. Y'all can watch that together while you have some good Baileys and coffee. But then, we got to get going. We'll do it again next week. Thank you. All right, guys.
Rob, I tell you, speaking of bowls, I'll be interested to test my theory this year that with Liberty being in the New Year's Six, I think Liberty and BYU have an unfair advantage bowl-wise because outside the playoffs, I think they'll be the only two teams playing not hungover.
Yeah, that's exactly
right.
Yeah,
I'm sure they won't. Well, it's interesting. When BYU won their national championship in 1984, they played a 6-5 Michigan team in the Holiday Bowl. You remember when Barry Switzer just went ballistic about that? And the next year in 1985, they claimed that in Provo, Utah, where BYU is, they named a local sewage treatment plant the Barry Switzer Sewage Treatment Plant. That's how aggressive the Mormons are, apparently.
I love it.
Woo, that was a bad one. We named a sewage treatment plant after him. Just kind of, that'd be like naming your accounting firm Howard Sprague, and Sprague, or who was Archie Bunker's accountants? Rabinowitz, and Rabinowitz. And then Johnny Carson had the famous firm Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Or was that his law firm? Yeah. Back when late night TV was funny. I digress. All right. For both of y'all, start with you now. Whoever wants to answer it first. Alabama, Michigan, that's a big one. I'm taking Alabama in that one. And then Washington, Texas. Alabama's one loss was to Texas. And I think it's because Bo Davis, along with Rodney Garner, they're the two best defense. And Pete Jenkins, he's 83 now, but he didn't have much to work with at LSU this year. But Bo Davis's defensive line, I think, will have the advantage, even though Washington has 26 fifth and sixth year seniors on that roster. start with you, Billy. Who do you think is going to win the Alabama game? And then go to Texas and Washington.
I believe Alabama's going to win the game against Michigan, but I think that game is going to prove to be like the Georgia-Ohio State semifinal last year. I think that's the actual championship game. So whoever wins that, either Alabama or Michigan, is probably going to win the whole thing. I don't think that neither Texas or Washington is going to beat either Michigan or Alabama. So that'll be the premier matchup at the semifinal level between Texas and Washington. I see it as a bit of a coin flip. I'll say Texas. But, you were talking about the Washington-Alabama Rose Bowl from 100 years ago. It would be kind of cool to see a rematch like that, for a championship game all these years later. So from an intrigue standpoint, that would be a fun matchup for the championship game. But I think it'll be Alabama-Texas for the championship.
And who wins?
That's a good call.
Well,
I don't think Alabama. I'll say this. After watching Alabama for decades, they always it's always green lights for them. They never lose a coin flip. They never get called for offensive line holding ever. I'm going to say they don't lose to Texas twice in 1 year.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, Jack's a Millsaps grad, Alabama Law School, but he's objective and he's fair. I think you served on the bench. Jack, you served on the bench before as a judge, hadn't you?
I've sat as a special judge a couple of times.
Yeah.
And I've been an arbitrator once.
Yeah. My grandfather was a judge and he taught law, and he said, "Boy, you better get amnesia when you go in that courtroom and I know you. And that's the thing about you. You are objective. You will call it as you see it. Does the dress make me look fat? Hiding behind a shield? You betcha. But hey, Jack, let's break it down. Is this Nick Saban's favorite Alabama team because of where they were early, the quarterback mess, and all that negativity? The dynasty's over, and it's Gary Harris along with Rodney Orr, who are both on this show every week, Tighter Insider TV. As they say, Gary said it best. He said, when Alabama loses now under Nick Saban, it's epic. So they lost that game, and I think that fueled Alabama because they turned within and got stronger as a team. And as Butch Thompson always says, players are allowed to get better. Fans, remember that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it has to be Nick's favorite team. It's watching them in that Texas game, watching them, struggle the next week, the O-line issues. I thought, well, this is just going to be a down year for us. And, be lucky if we get a New Year 6. And then to see the way that they fought and clawed back has been absolutely amazing. It's certainly probably my favorite Alabama team I've ever watched for that reason, just the amount of heart they have shown. As far as how it shakes out, I can't disagree with anything Billy said. I think Alabama probably beats Michigan, but I think those are the two best teams in this. My guess is Texas beats Washington, and Nick's pretty good in revenge games. It's kind of like when had the rematch against LSU back in sorry, I'm forgetting what year that is now, but yeah, when they beat us in the regular season, I guess 12, 13. Anyway, and then we, came back and beat them in the Sugar Bowl. So.
And, Florida State had that where Florida lost the regular season and won the championship game against FSU all those years ago. So the rematch almost always goes to the loser of the regular season game.
Yeah, because if you're the winner, you kind of need to stick with what worked. But if you're the loser, you know what they're going to do, and you get to try something different. So, yeah, I think that's a real advantage.
Yeah, and looking here, too, we hadn't even talked about it. Tennessee's got to play Iowa. This is one of those games. This is when we talk about these Big Ten teams come down to Florida. This will be in Orlando, Florida Citrus Sports. We had Steve Hogan, the CEO, on a couple of weeks ago. They've got 4 bowl games there in Orlando. And if you were a second or third generation Orlandinian, you'll be the first, because I think that's the home of the witness protection program. Other than people that work, as carnies and at the circus and at Disney or whatever, I'm not sure who's really from Orlando. But anyway, I got to say, Tennessee better be ready, because Iowa, their offense is like watching tar dry. It is so bad, but their defense is 5th or 6th best in the country. They do an incredible job of developing 2- and 3-star players. Tennessee lost. I mean, who did Tennessee beat this year? I mean, they lost to Florida, Georgia, They lost to Alabama and they lost to Missouri. And they're 8-4, and Mighty Joe Milton has quit on his team. So, and I'm going to butcher this name, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Nico Ialamaliva. Just like DJ Ui Ungala. As one guy said on the show the other day, Nico and DJ. But Lamaliva will be out
there. With Alabama, someone said Vern Lundquist just retired again.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch, but Tennessee better be ready against Iowa because they'll make this their Super Bowl. Iowa will bring 40,000 fans down there. Not that Tennessee won't, but these SEC schools kind of get butthurt when they're not in a New Year's Six or the playoff if they think they should have been there. Would you agree, Jack?
Yeah, I think we probably tend to get a little spoiled down here, and Midwesterners. It's funny. Midwesterners are very obviously very different from Southerners. And I went to a Nebraska Illinois game once in Lincoln. I had a fantastic time. It was when Bo Pelini was coaching at Nebraska.
Yeah,
and he had somebody had released an email or recording of a conversation with a voicemail where he had been kind of bad-mouthing Nebraska fans. And when that team ran out on the field, everybody was cheering for him. The only thing I ever heard a fan yell at him the whole game was when he was yelling at a ref. Somebody said, "You tell him, Bo." And I remember thinking, if he'd been at LSU in that exact same set of circumstances, they'd have had a Lexan shield around him. There would have been death threats. They're different folks, and I love them. I really love being in the Midwest. And I think they won't have the same kind of spoiled expectation that you might get out of some SEC fans. I think they're happy to be there.
Yeah, I think they really are happy to be there, Billy Roberts.
Now, I remember a few years ago, The Onion had a college football preview, that's produced in Madison, Wisconsin, and highlighting significant games. And one of them was, I think it was like Wisconsin, Iowa. And it said, could decide the Big Ten West. We'll certainly decide who gets stomped by a mid-tier SEC team in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, and I remember, Rob, a million years ago, Auburn and Penn State played in an Outback Bowl. And, half of the state of Pennsylvania lives in the west coast of Florida. It seems like there's a huge Steelers population there, even though the Bucs are the local team. So it is with college football. Auburn normally travels great to a bowl game, and they did for the Outback Bowl, but that place was packed with Penn State fans because they're trying to get the heck out of Pennsylvania in the middle of the winter and go to Florida for New Year's. And, we ended up being up big in the first half, and then Bobby Ingram went off, I think, and scored 4 or 5 touchdowns in the second half of that game, if you remember. And it was rainy and cold in the second half, so they had Penn State weather in the second half of that game, and they ended up beating Auburn, and it was an upset in our mind. Maybe they didn't see it that way. But, they come down, and they're pretty enthusiastic to come to Florida for New Year's. So that I agree, Iowa's going to have a lot of people at that game. No doubt.
I've been in downtown Memphis last couple of days and seen a ton of Iowa State fans here. They really turned out for their guys.
Yeah. They always do. And you're right. The Midwesterners, there's a lot more colorful language thrown at the coaches from the stands. You tell them, Bo. Yeah. That's what people at Auburn were saying after the Gravedigger conversion, gee whiz, gosh darn it, dadgummit. Geez, that's just the way the ball bounces.
Gee Willikers.
Gee Willikers.
Oh, my heck.
Yeah. Oh, my heck. Oh, golly. But, the whole thing is you look at all these games right now, the bowl games, there have been a lot of really good ones. Going back, I'll tell you, another player I want to give credit to is Ray Davis. Now, he had 285 yards rushing in the Florida game when Kentucky beat Florida early in the season. But in the games against Georgia and Alabama and South Carolina and Missouri, I think he had 164 total yards. He had 285 against Florida. He's got to show up in the big games. But I tell you what, I'm proud of that young man for. He's a Vanderbilt transfer to Kentucky. He's going to the NFL, and I believe he'll make it. He played in that bowl game, Kentucky-Clemson yesterday. That's one of the best bowl games I've seen.
A damn good game.
Yeah, 28 points in the fourth quarter. And I'm proud of that guy. And I go back to what Matt Rule, he wasn't much of a coach at the Carolina Panthers, but he took Baylor from 0 11 or 0-12 or whatever within 3 years to the Sugar Bowl. And look what he's doing at Missouri. I mean at Nebraska now. But I'll say this. They talked about Derek Browne when Auburn was playing Minnesota in the Outback Bowl, guys, 4 years ago. And I remember looking at the roster from Minnesota. On their entire roster, 85 scholarship players and walk-ons and everything, they had 4 players rated 4-star coming out of high school or better. No 5s, 4 stars. The rest were 3s and 2s and 9 rated. Auburn, on the other hand, with Gus and that team, had 62 players rated 4 or 5-star. And Minnesota curb stomped Auburn. Difference was they wanted to be there. Auburn didn't. But Matt Rule and them said in the fourth quarter, when the game was out of hand, they noticed that Derek Browne, a great one out of Sugar Hill, Lanier, over there in Beaufort, Georgia. Isn't that high school he's from, Billy? Is Sugar Hill in Lanier?
Yes.
Next to Beaufort.
Yep.
He's out there diving for loose balls, making tackles as a fourth-year player, and they ended up selecting him number 7 in the draft, and he's up every year now for NFL Man of the Year representative for the Carolina Panthers. The stuff this guy does off the field, you dream about a Derek Browne being on your roster. And that stuff matters. Yeah. So you want to see these guys. As a coach, you know, Nick Saban said when he got to LSU in 2000, after coming down from Michigan State, he said the number one goal in our preseason meetings every day was Sugar Bowl. Everybody wanted to get to the Sugar Bowl. Now you got guys quitting on their teams because they're going to the Sugar Bowl. We got to stop this stuff, folks. The fans can hit the portal too. If your school isn't making a commitment to win, fans can hit the portal. They don't do it that much, but they can. And then you could start having boycotts. How about an empty stadium for a game? You think that can't happen with social media? All you administrators and athletic directors out there that are paying yourselves and a lot of your idiot friends to do nothing. Ross Bajork, that's what I'm going to pronounce his name incorrectly. Ross Bajork, the fact that he still has a job as the athletic director at Texas A&M tells me that anything is possible, because he put that disastrous deal together for Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. All I'm saying is we got to start holding these people accountable, gentlemen.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I mean, the thing is, you know, if you compare other sports like that, they've had a peak level of interest and then it inevitably wanes because people are fickle and they move on. And you look at NASCAR, you know, not long ago, they were expanding all the tracks. They were building grandstands around an entire 2-mile racetrack, which is just crazy, you know, to the kind of expense. And they were selling these every seat they could get. Now, when you watch a NASCAR race on TV, they don't really show the stands very much at all because they're not full, you know, and so they're, from a PR standpoint, they just keep the cameras on the action on the track and they don't do any crowd shots or reaction or anything like that. So it's hard to imagine from 10 or 15 years ago that NASCAR has drooped a little bit in the peak interest that they had, but it could happen to college football too, like you're saying. I mean, if you don't have a stewardship mentality about protecting, you know, the game and the interest from the fan standpoint, you know, definitely people will find something else that'll hold their interest.
Boxing, you know, and horse racing used to be far and away the most popular sports in the country, way more so than, you know, football now they're, you know.
Well, here's what we got to watch out for.
You know, you may watch horse racing 3 times a year, and I can't remember the last time I sat down and watched a boxing match.
Yeah.
Yeah. And think about, well, when Mike Tyson was at the top of the boxing world, they kept putting those tomato cans out there to go up against him. And, you know, their heads, it's like busting a tomato can open. There was no competition. I'm going to tell you where NASCAR has gotten in trouble. You start trying to tell the fans what to do and how to think and what to believe.
Right.
You watch. I've been saying this, and we have free speech. The First Amendment is alive and well on this show. Watch out. Disney and the SEC. Wait until they start trying to tell us how to act and what we can do and what cheers we can say. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you something. You're going from CBS at $55 million a year on that contract. I mean, that and the deal for Manhattan with the Indians up there for $24 worth of beads and trinkets. Now it's $300 million plus with ESPN and Disney. Wait till they start trying to tell us what to do and what to believe. You talk about it with NASCAR, and it happened. Okay, you don't do it. Don't do it, Disney. It's something you got to be. You got to be powerful, and you got to stand your ground. But the South is going to save college football. It's going to save this country. That's what a lot of people believe. But it is saving college football, and the 12-team playoff is going to help that. But Disney, don't tell people what to think and what to believe. Stay out of that. Just show the games. And I'm going to miss, guys, I'm going to miss the hell out of CBS because when they did that 2:30 Central game on Saturday, that was the only game in the world to them. They weren't previewing every other game out there. Okay? They focused on that. And it was like, remember when we were kids going to the matinee on a Saturday at the movie theater, the ushers wore a coat and tie and people dressed up to go to the movies? Back like when people used to fly on an airplane, you dressed up to fly on a plane. Now, I mean, people honestly look like they've been on a 3-day drunken binge, in stretch pants because they're so fat they got to sit on 2 seats and they hadn't bathed. And you got to fly with them. It's just a tin can with a motor in it. I mean, it's horrible. I'm going to tell you something, man. Disney, don't tell us what to think and what to believe. You can't do that. Don't tell fans what cheers or what songs they can play. We're all on the same team. We don't like people telling us what to do. Gentlemen, somebody respond. Boxing used to be popular. Yeah, it did. But I mean, what took boxing out? I don't know. We better be careful. College football is special. You know why? Because it's personal. You talk and you run down a team and their players and a university. It's like telling someone they got ugly kids. People don't like that. And they fight back. That's what makes college football so special.
Yeah, well, I mean, and from boxing, probably the peak was like when Holyfield and Tyson were fighting, and Tyson bit Holyfield's ear off, and that was a must see event. And then you had that craziness going on, and the guy entered the ring on a paraglider or whatever, flew right into the ring in Las Vegas. I mean, those kind of theatrics, you can't invent that. No producer could have said, let's program all of that. But that kind of stuff that happened was fascinating. And, so boxing needs to have personalities. It's a personality driven sport, and you got to have a Tyson, a Holyfield, or better yet, both of them, Ali, Frazier. When boxing was at its peak, you had personalities that you could take interest in. And that's what they've got to get back to. If people are going to get interested in it again. Now there's other forms of fighting, MMA and things like that are popular, but for traditional boxing, they're going to need a younger Tyson. I don't know if he has any sons or not, but he needs to get him in the training and in the weight room and let's see a Tyson Jr. I'd love to see that. I don't know how many kids he has, honestly.
Yeah. I know Evander Holyfield had several. I know one played at Auburn, one played at Georgia.
They're all named Evander. You couldn't tell which one you got. Did I get the good Evander Jr. or the one that wasn't so good?
Well, George Foreman. George. But I think what's going on is in the South, and I think that John T. Edge and Wright Thompson, those TV show True South, where they show how food and the culture marry into one another in the South, and it pulls everybody together. I don't give a damn who you are, what race you are, I don't care about that. We're all trying to walk each other home, and that's the beauty of it. And the background stories of how sports have pulled people together, we need to be talking about that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes, Coach Dye, Coach Bryant, you name it. They'll tell you ain't nothing pulled people together like college football. It's pulled people together because, what you realized, man, we're a hell of a lot more effective when we love each other and pull together and go in the same direction. And that's why we get so emotionally invested in our teams. It's different. Pro football is fun. But, Jack, you said it best a couple of years ago. I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports. I mean, think about it. Saturday mornings, you can't sleep. You're bouncing out of the bed to tune into Sidelines, 8 a.m. Central, Monday through Saturday, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. You're bouncing off the walls for college football. Sunday, let's be honest, for the most part, you're laying on the couch asleep, dozing in and out of football. It's almost the way it is on TV. It's like music. But suddenly, when they put those games this time of year, NFL games on a Saturday, they're electric. I don't know what it is, but it's electric. But also, I watched that documentary on SEC Network about Bart Starr. That'll get you fired up. I mean, those guys, if you remember the old football trading cards, Billy Roberts is a linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. In the offseason, he's a customer service rep at Home Depot. Come visit Billy. They had to get a job, Yeah. I mean, Jim Tunney, the dean of NFL referees, been on this show probably 6 times. He said he remembered a dispute with Vince Lombardi had a player that was getting paid $6,500 a year, and he wanted his contract to go to $7,000, and Lombardi would not budge. He finally said, "Good luck wherever you go, but it won't be here." I mean, $500, but that's what built the legacy of the NFL. Chuck Bednarik, Ray Nitschke, Dick Butkus, Fred Biletnikoff, Ray Guy.
Well, they had the classic name. You can't be a 1960s linebacker without a name like Butkus,
Yeah. By the way,
I like the NFL. I enjoy watching it, but not once did I ever dread as a kid. Did I ever dread going to school on Monday because the Dolphins lost?
Yes.
If Alabama lost, I didn't want to be there on Monday. I didn't want to go to Sunday school Sunday because I knew growing up in Memphis, all the crap I was going to get from Tennessee and Ole Miss fans.
Yeah.
Well, I think that the NFL has benefited hugely from fantasy football because, I'm probably like you guys. I look to see what teams, have Auburn guys on the roster and then, try to add them to my fantasy team, whether it makes, sense or not. But I mean, it's a way for me to keep up with the Auburn guys that are in the pros by seeing, are they like, for instance, for whatever reason, the Bengals seem to always draft and sign a bunch of Auburn guys, that they've had for a long time, and I believe the Steelers get a lot of Georgia guys and the Giants get a lot of Georgia guys. So it's weird, how that works out. You can follow the team out of your regional viewing area if they've got a bunch of your college guys on their team. Like if there's a bunch of Alabama guys that are playing on Miami, for example, which there are right now, I'm sure that you've taken an unusual interest in what Miami Dolphins are doing this year. They're having a good year, right?
Yeah.
I grew up a Dolphins fan because Don Shula loved to draft Alabama players. He liked getting Coach Bryant's grads.
And Shula was the coach
in my life.
Alabama,
right?
Yeah.
This is the first time in my life I've ever cared about the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's because of Jalen and Devontae.
Yeah. Well, and that's y'all remember DX gas stations when we were kids, the DX trading stamps? You bought that book, and every time you got gas, you got trading stamps. And you would go to back then, 26 or 28 NFL teams, and you would take the stamps, and they'd have their name in there in the little square, Garrow Premium, Walt Garrison, Roger Staubach. And when you filled up a whole page, I mean, if I could find my book, because I filled up the entire book, I made my parents go buy gas when we needed a 16th of a tank. Okay. I mean, we at the DX gas station at Mendenhall and Summer across the street from the first ever Holiday Inn in Memphis that Kimmons Wilson opened years ago. And a friend of our family's, the man went on to great fortune in life when I believe Kimmons Wilson said to him, "Look, do you want to answer these phones? We got all these people calling in wanting to get a room to stay when they're on the road at night." And he goes, "Okay, I'll do it." I think he became the chief of reservations and built that whole model, but right place, right time. But here's the thing, Billy, you're right. All these people that do fantasy football, fantasy baseball, you start paying attention. It's like a portfolio of stocks. Let's say you got 10 stocks that you own. you are paying attention to what that company's doing. The greatest thing to increase interest is to allow people to take ownership, investment. And you know, the people that are the most negative and cynical that you see out there and that you hear out there in the general public about college football or basketball, whatever, they're not your season ticket holders.
That's right.
They're
it's
not.
the gadfly that's got the single share of Home Depot stock, and they come to the meeting and shake their fist, you know.
Yeah. That's it. They come to the shareholders meeting with one share. Okay. There are two kinds of people in this world. There are takers and there are investors. Your season ticket holders, all these colleges out there, it's amazing. What gives you that hope and what keeps you going forward, Ole Miss fans, they get that 11th win today. That's the best, the most number of wins in a season in history. That's why these games matter. But I mean, look, we've run out of time. Great show. You know, I think this is exactly it. Man, you're right, Jack. I love that. You know, the Miami Dolphins lost on a Sunday. I wasn't worried about when I went to school Monday morning. But if Alabama lost, yeah, same thing with me. When your school, when your college loses, it's like you're out in public at a big party and your clothes fall off your body and you're there naked as a jaybird.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you feel like when your school. Billy and I, especially the last few years, have been to a lot of Auburn games together, and you feel like you're buck naked and everybody's staring at you because that Penn State game, Billy, that one was really rough. But
yeah,
the bottom
when
line
Bill
is
Curry lost to Memphis State. That was a terrible Monday.
Oh, you know, I can't make it. I can't make it to the office. I'm sorry, but no, I tell you what, you nailed it. We went a little bit long. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Folks, just remember this. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. We have the greatest people. We the people, not the government, are why this country is special. And study the Constitution. Free speech is alive and well. We do not drink the Kool-Aid on this show. We tell it like it is, and that's what we love to do. We'll be back on Tuesday. Going to take off Monday. Happy New Year. It's going to be a great new year. Don't wait till the first of the year to start a good habit. Start it right now. But anyway, Billy Roberts in Brookhaven, not Atlanta. Jack Turner in Memphis, not Parkin. Rob Browne at the Cherry Farm in Parkin. To Dave Tompkins, Frank Duffy, Doug Dean, to everybody, our listeners and our sponsors, thank you a million for everything, for watching, for listening, and everything like that. As soon as I can hit that end button, I'm going to do it. But anyway, we're out of here. We'll see you Tuesday morning. It's going to be a great year. Get ready. We'll see you then.